Hey everyone, welcome back. We love to go deep here, but today, this topic is one that you guys are clearly interested in because we've gotten a ton of feedback and requests to really explore
I'm intrigued.
this idea of happiness and
Yeah.
why so many of us really struggle with it. And John, you've sent in some fascinating stuff, especially I love this concept called the hedonic treadmill, which I definitely want to pick your brain about.
Yeah, it's a bit mind-bending.
Yeah.
And you know what I find interesting about it? It really challenges those, common beliefs
Yeah.
about what makes us happy. We chase after all these things,
Oh, yeah.
like that dream job or the bigger house, the fancy car, thinking,
Yeah.
oh, once I get that, then I'll finally be happy.
Wrong.
But then the research kind of throws us a curveball.
Okay, yeah, let's break that down because I think we've all fallen for this illusion of happiness, right? It's like
Right.
you buy that new gadget or finally go on that dream vacation, and for like a week or two, you're on cloud nine, but then it just fades.
It really does. We fall into this happiness trap, chasing those fleeting pleasures, but those bursts of joy, they're just temporary.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You go on vacation, you're feeling amazing, but then you come back.
Yeah.
And you kind of adapt back to your everyday routine.
It's like that brand new phone feeling.
Exactly.
That, like the first few days, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And then it's just your phone.
It's just your phone. But this hedonic treadmill thing you mentioned,
Yeah.
it takes it a step further.
Yeah. It's not just about the initial excitement wearing off. It's like this.
It's this constant chase for the next big thing.
Yes.
And we think that will be the answer to our happiness,
Right.
but we're stuck on that treadmill.
Putting in all the effort, but not really getting anywhere in terms of real lasting fulfillment.
Exactly. And there was this study about lottery winners
Oh, yeah.
that after that initial euphoria, they actually often return to their pre-winning happiness level.
Within a year. It's incredible how adaptable we are. Like, we adapt to the good stuff just as easily as the bad stuff.
Isn't that fascinating? It makes you wonder, is focusing on external achievements really the answer?
Right.
But then there's the other side of the coin, which is
Oh, yeah.
our own minds can be the biggest obstacles to happiness sometimes.
Tell me about it.
Like, how often do you find yourself focusing on the negatives, even when things are generally good?
Oh, all the time. It's like my inner critic has a megaphone.
Right. It's like our brains have this knack for zeroing in on what's wrong,
Yeah.
even if it's a teeny tiny thing, and it just overshadows everything else.
Totally.
And those negative thought patterns, they can really weigh us down, especially when you combine that with any unresolved stuff from the past, past traumas or regrets.
It's like carrying around an invisible backpack full of rocks, It's exhausting, and it makes it so hard to just be present and enjoy the moment.
It really does.
And then just to, pour gasoline on the fire, we have social media.
Right. It's the ultimate comparison game. You scroll through, and it's everyone else's highlight reel.
Yeah. And it makes you feel like you're not doing enough or you're not good enough. It's easy to fall into this trap of perfectionism.
Totally. You're constantly striving for this
Great.
externally validated idea of success.
Which is totally unrealistic and honestly not sustainable. Have you ever noticed how you suddenly want things you didn't even know existed?
Oh, all the time?
Just because you saw someone else with it,
Like that fancy gadget or that perfect vacation.
Yeah, and it feeds into that fear of missing out, that FOMO feeling, and it can really mess with your self-esteem.
Totally. It makes you forget to appreciate what you already have.
Yeah, like we're all on this crazy hamster wheel of achievement and comparison.
Exactly.
And we're missing the whole point of what happiness really is. But, it's more than just those external pressures or inner critics, right? It's also about finding a sense of meaning in our lives, right?
Absolutely. If we don't feel like our lives have purpose
Yeah.
or a direction, it leads to this, sense of emptiness. Some people call it existential dread.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of what's the point of it all?
Yeah.
And it can be pretty unsettling, even if everything else in your life seems okay on the surface.
Yeah, totally. It's like we've all had those moments,
You have.
Like, what is this all about?
Yeah.
So we've got these external pressures, these battles in our own heads,
Right.
and this search for meaning.
Yeah.
It's like a recipe for unhappiness.
It's a complex recipe, for sure. But the good news is there is hope. Lasting happiness, despite all of this, it really is attainable. The key is understanding that it comes from within,
Okay.
not from outside.
Okay, that's reassuring. But how do we actually break free from this cycle?
Yeah, that's the big question.
We'll go soon genuinely fulfilled. What can we actually do?
There's a lot we can do. And what's surprising? Some of the most effective methods are actually quite simple.
Okay.
For example, let's talk about gratitude.
Okay.
Have you ever tried keeping a gratitude journal or just incorporating
Oh,
a
yeah.
daily gratitude practice?
I have. It's amazing how much of a difference it can make. Like, just taking a few minutes each day to appreciate the good stuff, even the small things, it totally shifted my perspective.
It's amazing, right? You start noticing all these positive things you might have overlooked before.
Totally.
And it's not just about feeling good in the moment. There's actual research
Right.
that shows practicing gratitude can actually rewire your brain
Oh, wow.
to focus on the positive.
So it's like we can actually train our brains to see the glass half full instead of half empty.
You got it. It leads to increased happiness, reduced stress,
Right.
and even stronger relationships.
Okay. But what about that inner critic we talked about?
Right.
You know, those negative thoughts that are constantly telling us we're not good enough. How do we deal with that?
Well, mindfulness and acceptance are key. Mindfulness is all about being present in this moment,
Yep.
observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Okay.
Practices like meditation can really help with this.
Yeah.
So you become more aware of those negative thought patterns. So you're not so swept away by them.
So instead of being controlled by our thoughts, we're learning to kind of watch them
Exactly.
without getting lost in them, like watching clouds drift by instead of getting caught in the storm.
A perfect analogy.
Okay.
And acceptance is crucial here too.
Yep.
It's about acknowledging our imperfections, our past mistakes,
Right.
without beating ourselves up about them.
Yeah.
You know, just saying, hey, this is where I am right now,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
It sounds like a lot of this comes down to self-compassion, which I think a lot of us struggle with. We're so quick to judge ourselves.
Yeah.
We'd never talk to a friend the way we sometimes talk to ourselves.
That's so true. And self-compassion is essential for breaking free from that negativity cycle. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we'd offer to someone we care about.
Okay, so we're working on gratitude, mindfulness, self-compassion. What else can we do to really break free from these patterns that keep us from feeling happy?
Well, remember the hedonic treadmill we were talking about?
Yeah.
One way to counteract that is to set realistic goals and expectations.
Okay.
Instead of aiming for this unattainable perfection, we can focus on making progress,
Okay.
celebrating small wins,
Yeah.
and recognizing that growth is an ongoing journey.
So instead of beating ourselves up for not reaching some crazy standard of perfection,
Exactly.
we're focusing on taking small steps forward and acknowledging those efforts.
Yes, it's about recognizing that every step counts.
Right?
Progress, not perfection. That's the key.
That's like that.
And this actually leads us to another important point, which is rewiring those negative thought patterns we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah. But how do we actually change the way we think? It feels like sometimes my thoughts have a life of their own.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But we can train our minds, just like we train our bodies. One approach that can help is cognitive behavioral therapy,
Okay.
or CBT for short.
CBT, yeah.
It helps us identify and challenge those automatic negative thoughts that contribute to feeling unhappy.
So let's say I'm stuck in this loop
Yeah.
of thinking I'm not good enough. CBT would help me look at that thought and ask, is that really true? What evidence do I have to support this?
Exactly. It's about questioning those knee-jerk negative thoughts
Okay.
and replacing them with more balanced and realistic ones.
Okay.
It takes practice, but over time, you can really rewire your brain
Wow.
to think more positively.
Yeah.
One technique is to create what's called a thought record,
Okay.
where you write down the negative thought,
Right.
you
Yeah.
challenge its validity,
Okay.
and then come up with a more balanced perspective.
Okay, so instead of letting those negative thoughts just run wild, we're actively challenging them and reframing them in a more positive light. I'm starting to see how we can actually take these big, overwhelming concepts like happiness and break them down into more manageable steps.
That's exactly it.
It's about shifting our mindset, changing our habits, and learning to be kinder to ourselves.
Absolutely. It's not about some magical overnight transformation.
Right.
It's about making those intentional choices every single day
Yeah,
to move us closer to a happier, more fulfilling life.
I love that. But we're not done yet, right? There's more to uncover on this journey towards lasting happiness.
Definitely. We've laid a good foundation, but there's more to explore. Next time, we'll go even deeper into those specific strategies for applying these principles to different areas of our lives, like our relationships, work, and overall well-being.
Awesome. I can't wait. This has been so eye-opening already. I'm sure our listeners are feeling inspired to start putting some of these ideas into practice.
Me too. Remember, happiness is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And even those small steps, they can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep choosing happiness.
Welcome back. It's great to continue this deep dive into happiness with you. Last time, we started exploring those initial steps towards a happier life. And, what I think is so important to remember is that this is a deeply personal journey.
Absolutely. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's about self-discovery
Yeah.
and figuring out what truly brings you that sense of joy and fulfillment. And, speaking of finding what lights you up, I wanted to circle back to something we briefly touched on earlier.
All right.
Those passion projects. Can you tell me a little bit more about those?
Yes. Passion projects, they're all about pursuing activities you genuinely enjoy.
Right.
Even if they don't have a specific goal or lead to, financial gain.
Okay.
Think about those hobbies or interests that you may have put on the back burner because of, life's demands.
So it's about carving out time for those things that bring you joy, even if they don't seem productive in the traditional sense.
Exactly. They're often seen as frivolous.
Right.
But they can be incredibly fulfilling. They tap into your creativity, allow you to learn new skills, and connect with others who share your interests.
It's about giving yourself permission to explore those things you're curious about, even if they seem silly or insignificant to others,
Yeah.
We often underestimate the power of hobbies.
I agree. We really do. It's about finding that balance between, work, responsibilities, and the activities that bring you pure joy.
Yeah, it's about nourishing your soul.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that saying, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Maybe it's not about finding the perfect job, but about making sure you're making time for those things you're passionate about, even if they're just hobbies.
I love that perspective. It's not about labeling things as work or play,
Right.
but about finding fulfillment in everything you do.
Yeah.
And speaking of fulfillment, there's another piece of this puzzle I want to highlight, and that's human connection. We briefly talked about the importance of relationships earlier, but I think it deserves its own little spotlight here.
I agree. I think we're social creatures by nature, and we often underestimate how much our relationships actually impact our happiness.
We really do. Strong, healthy relationships,
Wow.
they're one of the greatest sources of happiness and well-being.
Okay.
But it's not just about having a ton of friends or being popular. It's about the quality of those connections.
So it's about having those deeper, more meaningful relationships with people who truly support and encourage us, right?
You got it. It's about finding your tribe, the people who get you,
Right.
who celebrate your successes, and offer comfort during tough times.
And who make you feel seen and heard and understood.
Exactly. It makes me think of that quote, friends of the family we choose for ourselves.
I love that. It's about surrounding yourself with those people who uplift and inspire you. And sometimes that means being a bit more selective about who we let into our inner circle.
Absolutely. You can't be everything to everyone. Right.
And it's okay to set boundaries with people who drain your energy or bring negativity into your life.
It's about protecting your emotional well-being.
Exactly. So it's about prioritizing relationships that are mutually beneficial and supportive, where you feel that genuine sense of connection and belonging. So to recap a little, we've talked about gratitude, mindfulness, self-compassion, setting those realistic goals, challenging negative thoughts, finding balance, pursuing passions, and nurturing those meaningful connections. Is there like a common thread that ties all these principles together?
That's such a good question. It's like, if we were to distill it down to one essential element,
Yes.
what would it be?
I think it would be this: taking responsibility for your own happiness.
So it's not about waiting for things to change.
Exactly.
Or for other people to make us happy.
Nope. It's about recognizing that you have the power within you to choose happiness.
I love that. It's so empowering to remember that we're not victims of our circumstances, that we have the ability to shape our own experiences. Yes. And it's not about being happy all the time. Let's be realistic. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Life has its ups and downs.
Of course.
It's okay to experience that full range of emotions.
So it's not about suppressing or denying those negative emotions, but about acknowledging them and processing them in a healthy way.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about developing resilience,
Okay.
the ability to bounce back from challenges.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together, like building a foundation for a happy life brick by brick.
I love that analogy. It's a continuous process of building, refining, learning, and growing. And remember, there's no one right way to do it.
It's about finding what works for you, right?
Absolutely.
Honoring your individuality and creating a life that feels authentic to who you are.
Beautifully said. And that brings us back to something we talked about earlier, The power of taking small steps.
Yeah. So easy to get overwhelmed by the big picture.
I know, right?
But focusing on those small, manageable changes can really make a difference over time.
Absolutely. And sometimes those small steps can lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
So if you had to pick one small step our listeners could take today to start incorporating some of these principles into their lives, what would it be?
You know, one simple but powerful practice is to start a gratitude journal. Each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
It can be anything, right? Like
Anything.
a sunny day or a good cup of coffee or a kind word from a friend.
Exactly. The point is to shift your focus to the positive, to train your brain to notice and appreciate those good things, even amidst the challenges.
It's like hitting that mental reset button, reminding us of all the good we have in our lives.
And over time, this simple practice can really have a profound impact on your overall well-being.
It's a good reminder that happiness is often found in those simple things, those everyday moments we might otherwise take for granted.
It really is. And as you practice gratitude, you'll probably find yourself becoming more mindful, more compassionate, and more attuned to those things that truly matter. This has been such an inspiring conversation. We've really unpacked this complex topic, and I hope our listeners are feeling empowered to take ownership of their happiness and create a life that feels truly fulfilling.
Me too. And remember, even if you only take away one small nugget of wisdom from this entire conversation, that's a step in the right direction.
Every step counts. And until next time, may you all find joy in the journey.
We'll be back for part 3, where we'll explore even more specific strategies for cultivating happiness in different areas of our lives.
Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our happiness deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much already.
We have.
But, I'm excited to dig into the really practical stuff.
Me too.
Like, how do we actually put all of this into action in our everyday lives?
I think it's so important to remember that this is, this is an ongoing thing. It's not like you reach a certain point and you're done with working on your happiness. You know what I mean?
It's so true. It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
And the path is going to look different for everyone. Like what works for me might not work for you.
Right. And that's okay.
And that's totally kind.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. It's all about finding what resonates with you.
Yeah.
What brings you that sense of joy and fulfillment.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get practical. We've talked about healthy habits.
Right.
But I'd love to hear some specific examples of what that looks like in everyday life. Like we touched on exercise, sleep, diet, but what are some other habits that really contribute to that feeling of happiness?
One that I think often gets overlooked
Okay.
is spending time in nature.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever noticed how much better you feel after a walk in the park or a hike in the woods?
Oh my gosh, yes. Like there's something about being outdoors
I know.
that just makes me feel so much more relaxed and clear-headed.
It's like hitting a reset button.
Yeah.
There's a scientific term for this, actually. It's called biophilia.
Biophilia.
And it's this innate human tendency to connect with nature.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and studies have shown that spending time in nature can reduce stress, it can improve your mood,
Right.
it can even boost cognitive function.
So it's not just about getting fresh air.
Nope.
It's actually beneficial for our brains and bodies.
It really is.
Okay, I am making a note to get outside more often.
Me too.
It sounds like it's really important.
And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate,
Right.
Even just a few minutes sitting in your backyard,
Yeah.
tending to a house plant,
Yeah.
taking a walk around the block.
Yeah, those are all great ideas.
Just little things to weave nature into your day.
I love that. What about other habits, that we can cultivate to boost our happiness?
Mindfulness is a big one.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and it's worth emphasizing again. It's all about being present in the moment.
Right.
Without judgment.
Right.
Noticing your thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them.
So instead of constantly dwelling on the past
Yes.
or worrying about the future, we're focusing on what's happening right now.
Exactly. And it's a skill, It takes practice.
Yeah, I imagine so.
But it gets easier over time.
Okay.
There are so many different ways to practice mindfulness, like meditation, yoga, or even just taking a few deep breaths and noticing the sensations in your body.
I've tried meditation, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
It is.
It can be hard to quiet the mind.
It really can.
But I do notice those few moments of stillness, they can be so refreshing.
They are. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And the benefits are so worth it. Mindfulness has been shown to reduce stress. It can improve focus. and it helps with emotional regulation.
It's like strength training for our minds.
It really is. What other mental habits can we develop to sort of boost our happiness?
I'm taking notes over here.
Good. Practicing gratitude.
Yes, another one. We've talked about it a lot throughout this episode,
We have.
but I can't stress it enough.
I'm with you.
It's so simple yet profound.
It really is. When we focus on what we're grateful for, it just shifts our perspective, you know?
It does. It shifts it away from scarcity and towards abundance.
Yeah.
Instead of dwelling on what we lack, we start appreciating all that we have.
Right.
And it can be anything, big or small. A warm bed, a delicious meal, a kind gesture from a stranger.
You know, the more we practice gratitude, the more we train our brains to really see the good, even when things are tough.
Exactly. It's like a happiness muscle that just gets stronger with use.
I love that.
Speaking of strengthening those positive emotions,
Yeah.
kindness is another key ingredient.
Oh, yeah. Kind
When
of.
we're kind to others,
Right.
it not only benefits them, but it also boosts our own happiness.
It's a win-win. And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture.
No, not at all. It can be as simple as holding the door for someone, or offering a compliment, or just listening attentively when someone needs to talk.
Absolutely. Those small acts of kindness, they make a huge difference for both the giver and the receiver. And it creates a ripple effect,
Right.
inspiring others to be kind as well.
And I feel like it makes us feel more connected to others, which is something we've already talked about as being essential for happiness. It's like we're creating this virtuous cycle.
Exactly. When we're happy, we're more likely to be kind. And when we're kind, it boosts our happiness even more. Speaking of virtuous cycles, another really important habit is forgiveness.
Oh, forgiveness, that can be a tough one.
I know, right? Especially when we've been hurt or wronged by someone.
No, I've definitely struggled with that.
It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but it's crucial for your own well-being.
Okay.
Holding on to anger and resentment,
Right.
it only hurts you in the long run.
So forgiveness is really about letting go of those negative emotions.
Yes, about freeing yourself from the past.
Mhm.
It's about choosing to release the pain and move forward. And it doesn't mean condoning the other person's actions or
Yeah.
forgetting what happened. It's about making a conscious decision to let go of that anger and resentment that's weighing you down.
That's such an important distinction. Forgiveness is about our own healing. It's not about excusing someone else's behavior.
Exactly. And it's not always a one-time event. you know.
Right.
It can be a process.
Yeah.
And it might take time,
Okay.
but it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Because holding on to that anger and resentment just poisons you from the inside out.
This has been so insightful. I feel like we've covered a lot today, like both internal and external factors that influence our happiness.
Yeah. I hope our listeners are feeling inspired and empowered to create lives that feel joyful and fulfilling.
Absolutely. And remember, even if you only take away one small thing from this whole conversation, that's a step in the right direction.
Every step counts. Until next time, may you all find joy in the journey.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into happiness. We hope you found it valuable and inspiring. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic.